All right, thank you for joining us, everyone. My name is John Stumme. Here with me we have...
I'm Robert G.
And?
I am John Ryan.
Here to talk to you guys a bit about Halloween today. We're going to be doing kind of a past and present, just giving you the whole history of the holiday, some of the things that we've done, how it connects to stuff that's happening. I know that you guys have had a lot of questions that we got on the forums that we're going to be hitting some of those today. We may also be subjecting you to some other things that I may or may not have on this piece of paper that are going to be, well, it'll be interesting. We're going to see if we can get through this without any laughter happening off the camera, and I think the odds of that is we don't stand a ghost of a chance. Sorry. So, starting it off on that note, let's talk a little bit about Halloween in Guild Wars 1. Halloween is kind of a huge deal for us here at ArenaNet because with Guild Wars, when we launched all the way back in 2005, Halloween was actually the first holiday event that we had going into the game. So as such, like, it was the thing that set the mold for all of our Halloween events that, or not just the Halloween events, but all of the holiday events that followed after it. And because of that, there was a whole ton of new kind of work that went into that, setting the precedent for how we expect people to interact with these events and what are the things that we're capable of doing, because it was really a place where we used that opportunity to push the kind of content that how people interacted with things and what the game was. So with Mad King Thorn, when he shows up in Guild Wars 1, at the very beginning, he would make his appearance after his heralds would talk about, here's the coming of Mad King Thorn, and the towns were redecorated, and everything is decked out. Like, there's the huge cauldron in the middle of the town. You start getting undead showing up, and there's the guy that's like, I'm a corpse, don't step on me. And then when the Mad King finally arrives, you're subjected to playing a game of Mad King Says. You follow along with his instructions, or you die a horrible, awful, painful death. But if you're good and follow along, like, he gives you rewards, you get a hat out of it, everyone has a good time. To give you guys some historical insight on that, because I want to talk a little bit about just what it takes to actually make something like that, to really give you guys an appreciation for when we get into talking about the Guild Wars 2 end of things, just how far things have come and how much more we're able to do nowadays. Designers working in Guild Wars, most content that is put into the game is put in using Notepad and sheer moxie.
Duct tape, sometimes duct tape.
Sometimes duct tape. We're not exaggerating. The basis of things that happen in order to make content work in Guild Wars 1 is a designer can put objects in the world. They can tell those objects, if they're creatures or NPCs, to go places or do things. We can set tripwires, or we can set triggers, which are things that react to that. And really, that's the foundation. Like, those are the building blocks of Guild Wars 1. And it's important to note, for any of you out there who are a little bit more technical, in Guild Wars 1, triggers it's like a really bad light switch. Either something is off or it's on. And when it's on, it's always on. So when Mad King Thorn shows up, as you guys know, if you've seen him before, he shows up every 3 hours, I think it is, and goes through his whole routine. Which normally, you wouldn't think something like that would be a big deal, but in actuality, what's going on there? The spawn file for the very first Halloween is a huge, 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 huge spawn file that contains dozens upon dozens of Mad Kings that create themselves and destroy themselves. So there's a unique one for every time he shows up, which I suppose you could take away. Maybe there's just an army of Mad King imposters. Maybe there's a real one out there somewhere. But that's the kind of thing of, like, just how much went into making that event work. And we get into, over the years, we would always update, like, okay, we'll change out some of the jokes that the Mad King has, because it's kind of a tradition that the Mad King tells awful jokes. Now, fun trivia on that is that the jokes, the timing on his delivery is actually hard-coded into his script. So when we change them out every year, it's not just a matter of, hey, we're going to put some new jokes in there. We also need to find things that fit the cadence and fit the delivery style of the jokes that have come in years before. otherwise it won't sync up with the timing. So even things you would think would be little changes are actually kind of interesting production endeavors. And to that end, I have this list that I want to subject you to some things off of, because I'm talking about the Mad King's jokes. And Halloween, obviously it's a big deal for us within the game and within the community, because you guys know for many years we've done Halloween contests where we get fantastic entries from fans that are either making Guild Wars Halloween artwork, or we have cosplayers or people that are putting together like amazing props and all this cool stuff. But it's also something that historically has been really big in the studio, and one of the traditions that went along with that is the crowdsourcing, if you will, of the Mad King's jokes. So the call goes out to the company, like, give us your best, give us your worst, give us your Mad King Thorn jokes. And we compile a huge, huge list of them and categorize them over the years in case we want to go back and pull out any that could be winners. And that's where his jokes are mostly pulled from. So from that, I pulled some that are especially dubious that we hadn't used, just so, gives you guys a sense of, here's things that happen behind the scenes. So without further ado, I've got like 6 here. Number 1, how is a Norn like a dwarven boxer?
How is a Norn like a dwarven boxer?
They both fight with their bare hands.
Let that sink in, everyone. You got 5 more.
Number 2, what did the collection agent say to the ranger who was behind on his pet payments?
What did? Oh, just go ahead. I'm braced.
You owe me moa money.
4 more, folks. 4 more. You can make it.
Ruby's laughing off camera. Did you hear the one about the god that drank too much?
I haven't.
He had to run to the menzies room.
I don't think Ruby's going to make it through this.
Why didn't King Adelburn listen to his advisors about the Char attack?
I don't know. Why?
Because he was hard of searing. See, that one doesn't even really work.
But it would be perfect for the Mad King.
What did the dwarf say to the doctor?
Dwarves have doctors?
Apparently, and this one was having a conversation with a doctor.
So do tell. What?
He tells the doctor, I don't know what's wrong. I just seem to be going through a rocky time right now.
Oh, you see, I thought it was going to be he had a stone to pass.
Oh.
But no.
This is happening live, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming up with new Mad King Thorn
New
jokes.
and better Mad King Thorn jokes.
I don't think there's such a thing as better Mad King jokes.
It's only more worse.
Yes.
That's grammatically correct. What's a Corsair's favorite type of story?
Oh, tell us.
It's a romance novel.
Oh, you had the emote in that one too.
Yeah, just to really sell that one. Okay, last one, I promise. Asura are naturally suited to technology. They make such great engineers.
Oh.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will be here only for the remainder of this.
Yes.
So now that we've subjected you to some of our awful, awful traditions, talk about some of the lore stuff that we had going on.
Yeah.
So like I say, Halloween started with just the introduction of, you had the Mad King, and he would show up. And over the years, it became a tradition that, we wanted to bring this content back. That way everyone gets to experience it. But, as we have more time and energy, and these are things that we love, we want to add on to them each year so that there's always something new to the experience. And there was always a reason for people to come back, which is something that obviously you guys have seen, that we've carried this over to Guild Wars too. So over the years, we got a chance to kind of grow and evolve the Mad King story, so that it wasn't just, here's this deranged lunatic who shows up, subjects you to awful jokes, and as you've just now seen, they can be so much worse than what you get in game. And killed people because, hey, it's funny to kill people. So we started building out like what is the surrounding cast and what is kind of some of the story of this guy, because he's so atypical to other things that you encounter in the game, and he kind of just has his own niche and his mystique that we really wanted to take a chance to plumb into. So on the Guild Wars 1 side of things, stuff that started coming up over the years is we started building out the notion of the lunatic court, which were the courtesans, courtiers of the Mad King while he was still alive, that were then banished to the Mad Realm along with him, as well as some of the other characters that played a part in this. One that is particularly notorious, that I'll take a chance to address on camera, so the Nameless Lich. There was actually a joke in there that I was considering. I'll just use it, but one of the ones that was suggested for a prior year was that the Nameless Lich isn't actually the Nameless Lich. Their name was Phil. He just goes by Nameless to impress all the ghouls. Which is, see,
Well done.
For those who remember the Nameless Lich, he appears, I believe, in Draknar's Forge. It was Draknar's, right?
yeah, but like the joke doesn't even work because it's a she. So why would it be Phil? Now I'm being stuffed thrown at me. We had this growing storyline that we were setting up for what was to come for Guild Wars 2. So we have the Lunatic Court shows up, and they're trying to set the Mad King free, because obviously they were his supporters in life, and in his unlife, having him come back just one day a year was not enough for them. They want this to, like, every day of the year should be Mad King Day. And so you're set about on a bizarre series of tasks in order to try and break the seals that keep the Mad King sealed within his realm. Some of these, and I'll toss it over to Robert in a moment here to talk about putting together some of these, but we had some rather eclectic tasks that you went through, including things like you met the only person who ever rivaled the Mad King in terms of his ability to tell jokes. And like another one of those silly development stories is, I wrote that quest whatever year that was, and just for the sake of that, like, we came up with a specific cipher just that Quetzalcoatl, which is how you pronounce his name, you can take that to the wiki and edit it. Quetzalcoatl, he tells this joke in a cipher that if you translate it out, reads as, "Why did the seer cross the road? Because time was of the essence." Which, if you're a Guild Wars 1 player, that's hilarious, trust me. I have to go off of that fact because we're live streaming and I can't hear anybody laughing, but I'm trusting the fact that this was super funny. So a bunch of random tasks like that. So I will hand it over to Robert to talk about some of the stuff that he added.
Okay, so as you know, as John explained, the Lunatic Court, we have several different cast members for that. We've got the Countess of Hakewood. We have the Emissary of Mad King Thorn of Kryta, who is in Alona. So his name makes more sense there in Alona, at least. And we have a few other ones. There's the Sorceress of Kessex, and Golterror shows up later. Golterror's a fairly amusing NPC, by the way. If you walk up to him in Guild Wars 1 and type /boo, he will fall over in fright. There are actually a few other NPCs in Guild Wars 1 that do that. I'll leave you guys to discover that on your own, though. So basically, the Lunatic Court, they start out by giving you some strange quests, which in their mind they think will allow them to bring back Mad King Thorn. The very first quest is to find several items related to Mad King Thorn, because I believe as the Countess Hakewood puts it, she says, "I don't know much about rituals, but I know that there's always all sorts of fancy knickknacks on them." So your first quest is to find, I believe, a half-eaten apple, Mad King Thorn's left slipper, and a copy of the book, Moa Soup for the Soul.
Soup for the Demented Soul.
For the Demented Soul. And so you track down some of his old retainers to retrieve those. And then after that quest is you need to find him a mortal body, because he can't just come back as a ghost. He has to come back into some kind of animated body like any respectable undead would. But the problem is his body's missing. When the peasant uprising came and deposed him, I guess I will phrase it that way.
Violently
Yes.
deposed him.
They did some creative things with his body, so it's not really something that you want to really have him come back, his soul to come back into. He wouldn't appreciate it. So you go to a mausoleum, pick out some of the best parts of the most famous bodies from old Crichton kings and princes and things like that, and bring that back. And there's a few other things. You have to take out some ingenious Ettins. Because they are some of his most cunning foes. And as the quest progresses, a few small developments happen near the end. One of the quests I wrote for that was the quest Mad Little Pony, which is a quest where the rituals that you've been doing totally work, except that they open the pony pen instead of the door to the Mad Realm. And so you have to track down the Mad King's Invisible Pony. We had a question about that, actually. One of the questions from the thread earlier was, are all ponies invisible or just gumdrops? So gumdrops is definitely one of the invisible ponies. It's implied by the quest that there may be more than one invisible pony because invisible ponies, for example, do not leave hoof prints. You have to use special detectors to find them because if they left footprints, well, footprints would also be invisible. The pony actually was kind of a funny joke that kind of happened, and it kind of evolved from there. He started as a kind of a side, just a very small reference from one of the which one was it? It was the candy corn man.
Yeah, I think it was the candy cartoon.
Yeah, he mentions that he needs to groom the Mad King's Invisible Pony, and we started expanding upon that, and eventually we came up with the name Gumdrops. I forget which quest first named him Gumdrops, but that was kind of how this very amusing quest happened. And then in Kryta, meanwhile, another one of the quests noted that instead of releasing the Mad King again, they released some of his subjects, and they attacked the Ascalon settlement. Because how many times has that place been attacked? Right? I think it's
10, 20.
10th, 20th time the Ascalon settlement got attacked. I think it's still getting attacked in Guild Wars 2, actually.
Yeah, don't get comfortable.
I'm surprised people still live there. Honestly, it feels like it's a.
They're not the brightest.
Yeah, must be some really amazing market value or something on those houses. So you track down. So the Ascalon settlement gets attacked. You have to defend it. It's a pretty interesting quest because you end up getting a preset skill bar for that one. So you can't really prepare so much. It's kind of themed after survival horror games in that you have a kind of one-shot pistol type move. You get a very powerful move that you can only use every now and then, and a few other generic utility moves. And you have to kind of work together with your team to get that to play out well. Let's see. And that's kind of a lot of what happened with the Mad King in Guild Wars 1. And then he kind of disappeared, and that was another one of the questions. Why did Mad King Thorn disappear for 250 years and then suddenly come back? And so I guess I'll just explain a little bit about what happened during that period. So if you're paying attention to the Guild Wars 1 quest, you'll notice that the Lunatic Court doesn't exactly know what they're doing. I think in one of the quests, after it finishes, the NPC that you talk to finish the quest, he's so confident that like everything's working, and you were just so close that time. And all they have to do is just double everything, just double the number of ingredients, double the number of rituals, double the number of sacrifices, just double everything. And so, as they continue with their slightly misguided quest to bring back the Mad King, at some point during those lines before Guild Wars 2, they kind of screwed up, and it ended up backfiring on them. So the Mad King, instead of getting free, ended up getting sealed. And I doubt he was very happy about that, but that's more or less why he disappeared for so long. And then after 250 years, he finally found another crack in the whatever prevents him, whatever the seals were, to get back to Tyria basically, and that's what you've seen in Guild Wars 2.
We do know one seal's cracked.
Yes.
With the ascendancy of Queen Salma. The other seals we haven't talked about yet.
mystery. So kind of along those lines of talking about like what was going on with the lunatic court and the progression of the storyline, because reading through the thread of questions, we saw a lot of questions that are lingering things about like, well, is this story going to be resolved, or is this thing going to happen? And I just kind of wanted to take a chance as a general storytelling / world building thing to give you guys some insight into why we do some of the things that we do. And it's not always insanity, I promise you, although after hearing the explanation of how Gumdrops the Invisible Pony became a character in a game, I feel like I'm perhaps threatening some of my credibility, but I'm going to give this explanation anyway. So when we're putting together stories like this, especially things that can potentially make the transition from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2, and you guys probably familiar with the fact that there's any number of those storylines that happened, especially in Eye of the North, places where we were setting things up that we could pick up later on. For us, in Guild Wars 1, the resolution of the Lunatic Court comes with, you know that they're doing these rituals and you know that something is going to come of it. It's kind of a known quantity that they're going to keep at this. And as we've said, like there are some disastrous results that happened off camera, so to speak. And for us, we kind of like having stories that we can tell that are, it has a resolution within the part that can be satisfying in and of itself, but can leave things that are still to the imagination. There are a lot of things that are bookended stories that will tell you this and this thing happens and this was the consequences of it. But having any number of things where you come away from it and you wonder about that and it's like, what is going on there? And maybe at some point the answer comes in game, maybe the answer never happens. And part of that, I think, is what makes a world a compelling world, because the point at which you actively wonder about something, there's something, I want to know what's going on with this. And then chances are you'll start coming up with what your own theories are, what you believe is, and having those discussions with other people. And by the process of doing that, you're now taking something that we have created and put out there and you're making it your own. Like this world has some meaning and some value to you because there's an investment in it and something that like, man, it would be really cool if this happened. Like, yeah, it would be really cool if it happened. And so some of those things that we leave open-ended because we want user interpretation to be there, because it's a really lousy feeling when we set it up and it's like, here's this fantastic mystery, like everything about it, like you want to know, like what is this thing? And you spend all this time getting invested in it and it's like, yeah, that's totally going to be this. No, it's going to be that. This will be awesome. And then we might have had it in mind that it was going to be this thing all along, but people have had so much time to build it up and come up with their own interpretation that by the time we put something out, and it's like, well, no, it's totally this, it's never going to be as satisfying as the thing that you hoped it was, because that was yours, like that was your creation that you made with the game. So when you see things like this, it's really an opportunity that we're trying to help you get engaged with the world and build the world. So I promise we're not always in the habit of leaving plot threads dangling. It's not intentional. I'm not trying to be a jerk most of the time. Did the whisper pick that up? I was being sarcastic. And listening to Robert, like, since we're sharing silly stories, ingenious Hattons. I just need to touch on this one because this was one of those things, you know how people are like, you'll say something, it's like, man, it would be really funny if we did this. And usually that's the joke. You leave it at that. Circa 2005, I think, 2004, 2005, I was playing Guild Wars, and make it to the Ring of Fire Island chain and get up to the point where it's like, oh, here's the igneous Ettins. And in a moment of dyslexia, I looked at it and it's like, ingenious Ettins. These are the best things ever because they're just Ettins. And there's nothing at all special about them. But clearly they're brilliant. And I told myself, someday I'm going to make that joke. And it took approximately 5 or 6 years holding on to this. And I'm building this up to sound like it was really near and dear to my heart. It actually was.
No, I mean, we were doing some stuff with that for this Halloween. Is, okay, what if we did this? Okay, what if we did something with the wives? What if, I think at one point toyed around with the idea that, the Bloody Prince was just this. He wanted to be this mellow guy. I think wanted to be a dentist or something, or a veterinarian, and now we got to make him bloodthirsty. The idea was that, okay, he doesn't quite lead up. He doesn't quite fit what his dad wanted him to be. And then there was that sort of generational rivalry there. So it always comes up with an idea that, hey, this might work for this. And then you think about it, it's like, okay, we'll save that. Maybe we can use that somewhere else.
I think one thing that didn't happen while we were doing that Ingenious Ettins quest, by the way, was the idea of the mango hydras.
Oh yeah, that was the other one. Because in GW1, the hydras that show up in the same area as the igneous Ettins were the Mago hydras, but because of our font, it kind of looked like mango hydras, and they're sort of orangey in color anyway. So, yeah, someone actually, I think, reality checked me and made me step back from going completely off the rails with that one. But someday there'll be mango hydras.
So I'll add one other funny note about Guild Wars 1 Halloween to that. We did also bat around the idea of having a quest when the Lunatic Court succeeded more, I guess. I want to say succeeded, did a little better. This was before we kind of settled on the whole everything exploded in their face route, was the idea of Mad King Thorn, the story of how Mad King Thorn steals Winter's Day.
Yes.
Yeah, that was totally going to be a thing. It was going to be awesome.
I'd like him to steal Valentine's Day one year.
Oh.
I think that could be fun, especially with all the ex-wives.
Yes, that's true. He's got a lot of experience in that.
Yeah. Well, not really experienced staying married. No.
Well, he's wooed a lot of women.
Oh yeah.
Is it sad that like the first thing that comes to mind is I'm picturing some kind of event where there is like, here are the eligible bachelorettes, and there's totally like the love connection thing. The Mad King can't see any of them, and somehow like player-driven choice, the community is deciding like who's the lucky lady. Although given his track record, I don't think anyone could be considered lucky.
No,
lady.
I think that's the line where he's just going to say, "Who wants to be queen for a day?" And yeah, don't get too attached.
Mad King Thorn is not a good role model, and
No.
for all of the gentlemen out there in the audience, don't learn from him.
No, because you'll end up locked away in your own realm. With monsters, unless that's what you want, and then we can't help you.
We don't support you.
No,
but,
we don't. We do not endorse this message.
Yeah, so I think probably a good opportunity to like start transitioning over, talking a little bit more about the Guild Wars 2 stuff. We don't want to monopolize your time because we know you guys are super excited about all the new stuff that's happening. We are super excited about stuff too. I'll turn it over to John.
Okay, so we brought back the Mad King last year, just after we launched, and that was a very big experience because I think it was our first holiday out of the gate.
Yeah, just like in Guild Wars 1.
Yes. So, and we said, okay, as a company, what are we going to do to bring back the Mad King? What's it going to mean for players who've never played Guild Wars 1? And to see what this is about. And for fans, it's a chance to see the Mad King come back into Tyria today. I thought it went rather well, although I think we can still hear the screams of people who fall off the Mad King Tower.
I ran that clock tower for so many hours when it first came out.
Now, there's a shield in the game that you can get now, I think called the Dead Stop Shield, which has engraved in it, in Crichton, a special message from the Mad King. So if you get it, you can translate it and check it out. He has a special message for you regarding the Mad King Tower. Spoiler, he's not apologizing. Actually, I want to go over bridging creation guests. There's a number of questions here we're looking at to give a good frame of reference here. for instance, we got a question that says, why did Mad King Thorn disappear for 250 years? We took care of that. He sort of bungled it and locked himself away. Then suddenly come back. If there's any lore behind this, I'd like to know it. He came back because Halloween is his favorite day. It is his big day. It's his big day, and that's the time when he builds up enough energy to break through to the physical plane of Tyria. And so that's his big push. Meanwhile, the lunatic courtiers are working behind the scenes to make it a permanent thing. But for now, this is Halloween 2012 is the first time he was actually able to push back, much to the sadness of the loss of the lion statue.
It got better.
It did get better,
Cool,
but still, yeah, for a while it was a sad lion. Now it's a put back together lion. What drove the Mad King to his madness? And I think that's sort of a round robin question here. He was, I think from a young age, he was someone who delighted in the madness of I don't want to say inflicting suffering, but of pranks that escalated to bodily harm and death. He just thought it was an hysterical thing. And then after a while, sort of escalated and escalated until that became what he was. It was just sort of something he grew up with. Being a regent, he was enabled, nobody really stopped him, and then he was put down by his subjects, and then Grent sealed him away, and to make sure that he had his own little realm that he could be locked away in, hopefully pacified, and it didn't quite work out because the guy still comes back once every year. Well, starting in 2012, starting last year. So, why does the Mad King wear a pumpkin on his head?
Oh, okay, I have an answer for that one.
Oh,
we went
do?
and asked the Mad King. Let me see what he says. Let's see. He said, 1,000 pardons, citizen, but I cannot hear your question. You see, I have a pumpkin on my head.
Ha!
At one time, he wore a lemon on his head, but we found that soured his personality.
Follow up there.
Oh man, I got a groan from John Stumme. My day is made. Will we ever find out where the pieces of the body are located, or have some sort of scavenger hunt to find them? That's always something. We got a number of questions about where we were going to go with the Mad King story in upcoming Halloweens. We have a number of ideas where we'd like to go with it, but part of it is always thinking about scope and scale and time to put into it. How much can we devote to this? How much resources that we have available this year? There was some comments that this Halloween 2013, didn't feel as big as Halloween 2012. And part of that is we wanted to tell another little story. We wanted to set the stage with the Bloody Prince. We were thinking about having more conflict down the road with the Bloody Prince. Personally, what I'd like to do, and granted this is not written in stone, I would love to have the Mad Wives or the Mad Queens show up and stake their claim. We haven't really seen much of them. We know about Zola, who was burned alive, and so that didn't end well for her. And I would imagine that she has something to say about that.
There's a quest in Guild Wars 1 where she does in fact say a few things about what she'd like to do with the Mad King if he ever comes back to the mortal realm.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think things would have ended so badly between them because their relationship was really heating up.
So this year was also when we also named two more of the queens, Estrella and Henrietta. And Estrella was, I believe, put in a box and dumped into the sea, and Henrietta was actually killed by the Bloody Prince in a very fatal game of pin the tail on the Drake. But there are other wives out there, and it's something that I'm interested in exploring down the line.
It's 3 and then 5 to go, was it?
5 to go.
I'm gonna say, like, you can just stop and have a moment of appreciation for the fact that we answered a question and had a conversation that the gist of it was mutilated body parts. Yay, let's go find them.
Yeah, and I'm sure that won't stink at all. Let's see. So we have also another question or a comment. It seems like Edric and his father are both pretty mad. Is there any time when they got along? It seems these two could get up to some really terrible mischief, or maybe a family squabble that dragged in innocence.
I think they've probably already dragged in quite a few innocents.
Yeah. Collateral damage to the Thorn family isn't something that they worry about. I think they, at one time, I imagine that they did get on. And then when the son sort of wanted to overshadow his dad, things, of course, got a little, problematic between the two. The Bloody Prince he fashioned himself as a warlord. Go in, kill everybody, burn everything, and have people fear you. The Mad King had a code. Granted, it was a completely demented code, but he loved his subjects. He loved his subjects dearly, almost to the point of death, and sometimes beyond. But he at least cared, as much as a madman does. So
In his own special way.
right. So you have the Bloody Prince wanting to conquer and thinking that his dad was old. His dad was too behind the times and thought his jokes were terrible and thought, hey, the Mad King overthrew his dad to take power. The Bloody Prince, well, he's going to follow suit and overthrow dad. Didn't quite work out that way.
The Bloody Prince didn't like candy corn much either. I think was probably another point of contention.
Well, that's when he was stuffed in a box, the chest of insanity, and with only candy corn stuffed in his mouth, because Dad thought, hey, you're going to need a meal to go, and stuffed it in his mouth, and that's a big reason why the Bloody Prince hates candy corn. And I think we had a question at one point: why did the Mad King like candy corn? I don't think we ever gave a canon reason for that. I always thought about it as candy corn as it's candy that's supposed to be food. It's candy named after a vegetable. How absurd is that? It's like naming a sponge after a dog. He just thought, oh, hey, this is something really funny to have, especially while his countryside is dying of famine. So yeah, let's have this candy corn, and yeah, he probably thought it was a laugh. It was something that the royals thought was funny.
Was that an implicit hint at the next quest where you have to find Mad King Sponge Fido?
Okay, we gave away Halloween 2014. I'm sorry. Spoilers. We can all go home now. Yeah. So I want to know about the clock tower and the Mad King's castle. Okay, it's a place where people fall to their death. As far as that goes, that's something that I don't want to reveal at this point, because there's always a chance that this may play into further ideas down the line, and we want to keep it sort of tucked away just for a little bit longer. So let's see. We also have another one. We have another question about, are all ponies invisible?
Yes, so not all ponies are invisible, like I said a little earlier. Gumdrops is definitely invisible. It's still a little up in the air as to whether or not Gumdrops is actually just a figment of the Mad King's imagination or not. But he actually does get summoned in a few quests. And he has a name tag, so I assume that he actually exists in the world, unless there's some kind of mass hallucination going on.
The entire game is an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
The Mad King, in theory, has a whole stable of ponies, though. Gumdrops is his favorite.
So, good question here about when and why did the Char and the Asura start celebrating Halloween? And that's something that I want to clear up right now. When you see the different races in Lion's Arch, those are Lion's Arch residents. They're not your atypical Char or Sylvari or Asura. So, Char, let's say back at the Black Citadel, they look at Halloween as a waste of resources and as a complete breakdown of discipline. Asura back at Red Assume would consider it a distraction from more important things, basically their own research. Savari, say, back at the Pale Tree would be a little suspicious of it. They'd wonder why this whole celebration of things that are dark and spooky. They'd wonder about if, something about the Nightmare Court.
Nightmare Court and Lunatic Court, not to be confused with each other.
No, not at all. Please, take that away. And Norn would look at it as a party and just say, all right, fine. Hey, we have another thing to celebrate. Let's give out candy and drink and party. And hey, if we can do it at Lion's Arch and wear costumes, all the better.
Build your legend by collecting candy corn
Just
and
don't.
trick-or-treat bags.
Yeah. I could see some Norn, that's his or her big thing. Norn kids, that they would pile on top of other kids and try to raid the candy. Get all the candy.
I saw one Norn kid dressed up as Santa.
Well, that dude's eager for Winter's Day. So let's see. What happened to the gargoyles, and why did they come back on Halloween? Oh, are you asking about the creatures from inside the Mad King's Labyrinth?
I assume it's the ones that come out of the doors. Yeah, there's a couple in the labyrinth too.
Well, yeah, I mean,
The Guild Wars 1 gargoyles, I don't think those weren't really associated with Halloween. But Guild Wars 2, I guess, has specific gargoyles specific to Halloween.
right. So I believe that was just a sort of design and a creature choice that this is something that would fit in for the Guild Wars 2 era of Halloween. And let's see. A couple other questions from the forums about this. See, we have encountered the Mad King's brother and son, meet the wives, hopefully. Make sure. Okay. I think that's all the questions that we got for this, for Guild Wars 2 Halloween. Do we have any other questions from the board at this point? From the forum? Okay.
Let's see what we got.
And also regarding about what, deeper plans that we want to do for Halloween is, since we established the Bloody Prince, is we want to set up that storyline as well. Sort of an ongoing conflict between dad and son, and to see where it goes from there. So what this Halloween was doing was trying to set the seeds, sort of plant the seeds for that down the line. As far as what we're going to be doing for upcoming Halloweens, that I don't know. This is sort of the time where after we get done, we say, oh, okay, this worked. This will be great to bring it back next year. Or, hey, this will be a great idea to take this story down the line to see where it goes from there. Do Quaggins celebrate Halloween? When they're not being eaten by Crate, yeah, definitely. If you go around Lion's Arch, you'll see at least one Quaggin in a ghost outfit running around, wanting candy and saying boo. So Quaggin do, I would say some Quaggin celebrate Halloween.
I think the one Quaggin costume that I didn't get to see that we had in some concept art was Quaggin Batman. Couldn't do that one for obvious reasons, but it was pretty amazing. He had a little cowl and little ears coming out.
Oh, to hear it do the Christian Bale voice? I think
that was I think it was an edited concept art from Horia.
Oh.
Yeah, there are stacks and stacks of edited Quaggin concept art, each more ridiculous than the last. Just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that we're hoarding for our own personal amusement.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing is we would go through, say, dozens of ideas, and some of them sort of just outright no, and some of them is, okay, what can we do with this? And some of them is, yes, that needs to go in immediately. And then if we can get it in through art, through design, animation, audio, writing, lore, to get that in there is to put it together. We had the idea for a Bloody Prince, I think since last Halloween. It's just they didn't really have a place to put him in yet. And so this year was when they said, okay, let's unleash the Bloody Prince.
All right, so it looks like we're all good on time. So we're going to wrap up here. Want to thank everyone for joining us. Hope you had a good time. We enjoyed ourselves. We're sorry for any of the awful jokes that we might have subjected you to, but 'tis all in the spirit of Halloween. There's still stuff being thrown around over here. This is a professional live stream, ladies and gentlemen, and we are trained. So if you like what you saw, please follow our Twitch channel and tune in for more Guild Wars live stream events to come. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy your Halloween.
Happy Halloween.